All right, so let's try a couple of conversions. So if we look at this conversion table, we have, if my computer wasn't frozen, okay, we have the conversions, same conversion table as before, but with cubed. So those numbers are very big. So if we go 3 cubic meters to cubic centimeters, so we're saying going from cubic meters to cubic centimeters, what have we got to times by? We got to times by 100 cubed, which is the same as saying a million. So how many cubic centimeters are there? 3 million cubic centimeters. Did everyone see what we did there? Okay, so we're just moving the decimal place, 6 decimal places as well, if that's the way, if you didn't have a calculator or you wanted to look at it that way. What if I go from centimeters, cubic centimeters to cubic meters? So we're going back the other way. This time we are doing what? We're dividing by 100 cubed or dividing by a million, which is, how many decimal places did we say? 6, because there's 6 zeros. So the decimal place right here is here. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many cubic meters are there? 2.53. Everyone okay with that? All right. So remember that you may need to convert. So in your question, especially application questions we'll get next week, it might say, you might have your answer in cubic centimeters, but it will say, I need the answer in cubic meters. Or it might say the cost is per cubic meter. So you've then got to work out the cubic meters and then times it by the cost, things like that. Any questions about conversions? Yes. Week 11. Okay. All right. I don't know what day yet. All right, so volume of a prism. So remembering this is for prisms, not for pyramids or spheres, okay? Volume of a prism, the formula you get on your formula sheet says volume equals the area of the base shape times by the height. Could you write that down? Volume of a prism, volume is the area of the base shape times by the height. So this is where it becomes really important that you know what base shape you've got. So if we look at this prism here, actually we'll look at this one. If we look at this prism here, what sort of prism is it? Rectangular prism, okay. So we need to know the area of the base shape. How do we find the area of a base shape? Length times width. So this area here, now the height is always the height of the prism when the base is on your hand. Okay, so put the base on your hand, or imagine it on your hand. The height is that up and down, perpendicular height. All right, so for this, you'd find your length, the area of this, and then you'd times it by the height. So let's try an example. For this rectangular, actually it's a square base prism. Okay, sorry, I'll get out of your way. For this square base prism, what's the base shape? Square? It could also be the rectangle if you wanted to, but it's probably easier. The base shape is the square. What's the height? Yeah, 12, okay. So if you put the base on your hand, the height would be 12. So given that, our volume equals the area of the base shape. How do we find the area of a square? 8 times 8. Okay, times by the height, which is 12. So just put that in the calculator for me, please. So the volume is 768 centimetres or cubic centimetres. And that's your answer. The formula actually for like this is just length times width times height, but that only works for rectangular prisms, not all prisms, just rectangular prisms. Everyone kind of gets caught up in this because you've learnt that forever. Length times width times height, that's the volume. It's only the volume for rectangular or square base prisms. Doesn't work for triangular base prisms, doesn't work for cylinders. Okay? Everyone okay with that? All right, we are going to move fast. So a cube, base shape, square, height, same number as well. So for this, we would just be going volume equals 5 times 5 times 5. Area of the base shape, which is a square, 5 times 5, times by the height, which is also 5. So your volume's 125 meters, cubic meters. Put it away. I'm pretty sure you're the first person I've had to do that to other than like a year 7, about 5 years ago. All right. Okay, everyone okay with them? Length times width times height for any sort of cube or rectangular prism. All right, next shape. If we have a triangular prism. A triangular prism, so something which looks like this. What's the base shape? The triangle. How do we find the area of that? Half times base times height. Now, so this is where our height for the triangle needs to be different from the height from the prism. So let's use a capital H for the height of the prism. All right. So if we look at this, we're saying volume equals half base times height. That gives us the triangle. What do we then have to multiply by? The height of the prism. Okay. So if we look at this, what's the base and height of the triangle for this example? 5 and 3. Okay, so we're going half times 5 times 3. The easier way of doing that is actually to go 5 times 3 is 15 and then halve it, which is 7.5. Times by the height of the prism. Where's the height of the prism? 8. Okay, so put the triangle on your hand. Where's the height? It's that edge between it. The other way to think about it is actually saying the height is the distance between your two base shapes. Okay, it's the length of that rectangle between the two base shapes. So half of 5 times 3 times 8. Is it 60? 60? Yeah. 60 cubic meters. I find the easiest way to go 5 times 3 is 15 times 4 is 60 because I halved the 8 instead of halving the other numbers because they're all multiplying. Volume is actually way easier than surface area, but you've just got to be able to read the question and work out whether the question's asking you for surface area or asking you for volume. Okay, so the main thing is, again, about working out what application the question's actually asking you for. All right, so let's try this next one. If I had this shape, now what shape is the base shape here? Some composite weird shape, we have no idea. However, I'm telling you right now, the area of that shape is 35 cubic centimeters, and is 35 cubic, square centimeters, and I'm telling you that it's a prism. So how could I find the volume of this shape? All I have to do is go the area times by the height. So if you get told the area of the base shape, it's actually even easier. So 35 times 12. 420 cubic centimeters. Be aware, and I forgot to remind you this with area, the measurements still have to be the same. So if that height was actually like 3 meters, you would have needed to convert it to centimeters. So all the measurements have to be the same. Any questions? All right, last one here. What about this? I'm telling you it's a prism. What's the base shape? It's a sector. We haven't looked at a sector for a while. So base shape is a sector. Okay, what's the height? Equals 10. All right, so we have to find the area of that sector. How do I find the area of the sector? Good. 25 over 360, because it's that section of a whole circle, times by pi r squared. What's the radius? Times by 10. Okay, so that section of a whole circle times by pi times 6 squared times 10. And what measurement is it in? Cubic centimetres. Okay. Any questions on there? Are you guys okay if we go straight into the other ones and then we practice? Yeah? All right, so what do we still need to know about? Good. Spheres and pyramids. Now, can we think about pyramids, what we just looked at with the water in the shapes? What was that rule we kind of worked out? A third. Okay, so any pyramid is actually the volume of the prism times by a third. That's the formula for any sort of pyramid. So, volume of pyramids the formula is, and this is the formula you get given on your formula sheet, you don't get given any specifics, okay? A third times by the area of the base shape times the height. So we still do exactly the same thing as we just did for prisms, but we then either times by a third or divide by 3. It means the same thing. So the volume of pyramids, volume equals a third of the area of the base shape times by height. So, for example, if we have, now what shape is this? It's a square base pyramid, okay? So, what's the base? It's 5 by 5. 5 by 5. What's the height? 7. And so, all we do is we say volume equals a third times by 5 times 5, which is the area of the square, times by the height, which is 7. A third of 5 times 5 times 7. Chelsea, you can put that in your calculator for me. Can someone put in the calculator for me, please? What do you think it is? What'd you get? 50? Yeah, that sounds right. Okay, so 58.33 cubic metres. Any questions on that? So it's exactly the same as finding the prism, but then we just divide by 3 or multiply by a third. All right, so if we look at a cone, what's the base shape? Circle, okay? So a circle with a radius of 3. What's the height? 8. Now, be careful with this. You know how yesterday we looked at slant height? It's not the slant height. And often in these questions, we'll actually say to you, find the surface area, and we'll say find the volume. And so we'll give you both the slant height and the height of the pyramid because we need the slant height for the surface area, but you need the height for the volume. So the perpendicular height for the volume. So just be aware it's the perpendicular height for volume. It's always the straight up and down from the base. All right? So volume equals pi r squared, pi times the radius, 3 squared times by the height, which is 8. We've only got one more to go. Say it again. 326.819. Thank you very much. Was that the same? You gave up. Okay. All right. So pi r squared, because that's the circle, the area of that circle, times by the height, which is the 8. All right, we've just got one more to go, and then I'll make it so that people can go back to the notes if they need to. Okay? Oh, yes. You divide it by 3. Good point. I was trying to go too fast. Let's change that. Times by a third, which is... Sorry, can you make sure you put the third in there? That's actually very important. Because otherwise that's the cylinder. you could just get the answer and divide it by 3. All right, so that's a half. That should be a third. Let's start again. Thank you very much. All right, sorry. 75.40. Thank you. Good pickup. All right. Everyone okay with that? All right, last one, volume of a sphere. Now, if you wanted a volume of a hemisphere, what would you have to do to this answer at the end? Halve it, okay? So this one, everyone makes mistakes in, including myself. And where they make the mistake is that they don't notice that this is to the power of 3. And they do to the power of 2. All right, so just be aware this formula is on your formula sheet, but just be aware that it is to the power of 3. So if we have an example here where the radius is 5, then we need to put in volume equals 4 over 3 times pi times 5 cubed. 5 cubed is 125. It's going to end up being quite a big number. Okay, so the volume of the sphere, 4 over 3 times pi times 5 cubed. Make sure you put the cubed into your calculator. I'm about to show it to you. It's on the OneNote as of today. Four over 3 times pi times 5 cubed. 4 over 3, it's part of the formula. It's 4 over 3. 4, so it's 1 1/3. What do we get? 523. Hang on a sec, I'll tell you a sec. 523.60 to 2 decimal places. Okay. Remembering that a sphere isn't a pyramid, okay? So we don't have to divide it by a third or anything. It just happens that this formula works to work it out. So it's just the way it is, okay? However, very quickly, I'll come back to the notes in a second. Just hang on. In a second, if I just show you on the OneNote in the welcome page, the formula sheet is now there, okay? The formulas you have, notice you've got the sphere, both the surface area here and the sphere volume there. Be aware that surface area says squared, volume says cubed. You've got the same for the cone, but realize that the formula you get given for a cone only has slant height. So if you don't get given the slant height, you're going to need to use Pythagoras. But we do give you Pythagoras up the top as well. But notice that it's not rearranged. It's just a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It gives you the area and circumference of a circle. It gives you the area of a triangle, a parallelogram, a prism. But notice it doesn't give you any actual formulas for specific prisms. It just tells you area of a base shape times by the height. Okay, volume is area of the base shape times by the height. So you need to know the area of the base shapes to get there. Pyramid, 1/3 of area of the base shape times the height. So we don't give you specifics because you already know how to find those things to get there. And then cone and a sphere. All right? Okay, your work to do is to go back to exercise 9B, questions 1 to 8. Okay, and I'll put the notes back up for people.